You ever notice how the harder you try to see something up close, the blurrier it gets? You press your nose against the painting, and all you see is color. Strokes of red, blue, black. Step back a few feet, though, and suddenly you see the masterpiece. Life works the same way. We get so tangled up in the details, deadlines, problems, arguments, insecurities, that we lose sight of the bigger picture. And sometimes the smartest move isn't charging forward, it's stepping back. See, clarity doesn't live in the noise. It doesn't live in the chaos of trying to do everything, be everywhere, respond to everyone. Clarity is found in distance. Think about a storm. You don't stand in the middle of the lightning and expect to understand its pattern. You get above the clouds, you look from the sky, and then you see how it all connects. That's what stepping back does. It pulls you out of the storm so you can see the direction of the wind. Now, don't confuse stepping back with quitting. Quitting is walking away. Stepping back is resetting your stance. It's like a fighter who leans back, not because he's afraid, but because he wants to find his angle. He wants to see the opponent's next move. He's not retreating, he's preparing. That's the kind of step back I'm talking about. The one that gives you perspective. Psychologists call it cognitive distancing. When emotions run high, when the heat of the moment clouds your judgment, you gain control by pulling back just enough to see the situation for what it really is. That little bit of distance is the difference between reacting impulsively and responding intelligently, between losing your temper and keeping your composure, between regret and respect. And here's the thing, we live in a world that worships busyness. We wear exhaustion like a badge of honor. People brag about how little they sleep, how much they hustle, how they're grinding 24/7. But being busy isn't the same as being effective. Motion isn't progress. Noise isn't music. If you want to create something lasting, if you want to live with intention, you've got to stop confusing activity with achievement. Stepping back allows you to separate the signal from the static. It's the silence between the notes that makes the music. Philosophers have known this for centuries. The Stoics practiced it through reflection. They'd take time every evening to review their day, not to beat themselves up, but to step back and see the pattern in their own behavior. What did I do well? Where did I stumble? What will I do better tomorrow? That small act of stepping back gave them clarity, and clarity gave them strength. In our own lives, stepping back can be as simple as turning off the phone for an hour, as simple as going for a walk without headphones, as simple as taking 3 deep breaths before answering an email that frustrated you. It's not about disconnecting forever, it's about reconnecting with yourself before you engage with the world. Because when you step back, you start to see truths that were hidden by your proximity. You realize that argument you were ready to fight over wasn't worth it. You realize that opportunity you thought you needed so badly wasn't aligned with your values. You realize that the fear you've been carrying is smaller than the courage you already have. Clarity strips away the illusions. It brings things back into focus, and with clarity comes power. The power to decide where your energy goes, the power to recognize what truly matters, the power to stop reacting and start creating. That's when your actions become intentional, not accidental. That's when your life starts moving toward purpose instead of spinning in circles. So the next time you're overwhelmed, the next time the noise feels too loud, don't double down on chaos. Step back. Take the higher view. Give yourself enough distance to see the masterpiece instead of just the brushstrokes. Because stepping back doesn't make you weaker. It makes you wiser. And wisdom, my friends, is the real power. Closing statement. Step back, not to escape, but to see clearer. Step back, not to lose ground, but to find direction. And when you do, you'll realize that the space you create is the very place where your power begins. We live in a culture that tells us strength is about showing force. Speak louder, push harder, move faster, prove yourself. But I found real strength often comes from restraint, from knowing when not to swing, from knowing when silence says more than words, when patience cuts deeper than anger, and when holding back actually gives you the upper hand. Restraint isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's that ability to control yourself in a world that's begging you to lose control. And here's the kicker. The people who can control themselves end up being the ones who influence everything around them. Because people trust calm. They trust composure. They trust the person who doesn't need to prove their strength every second, because that person already owns it. Think about fire. A fire that rages wild destroys everything in its path. But a fire that's contained, channeled, becomes energy. It becomes heat, light, power. That's what restraint does. It channels your energy into influence instead of letting it burn recklessly. Philosophically, this is the essence of mastery. The Stoics spoke about it as self-governance. A person who cannot rule themselves will always be ruled by something else. Their temper, their impulses, their fears. But the one who practices restraint commands their own ship. And when you command yourself, you naturally command respect. Influence doesn't come from dominating others. It comes from demonstrating mastery over yourself. Now, restraint doesn't mean you never act. It doesn't mean you stay quiet when something needs to be said, or you hold back when the moment calls for courage. It means you choose your timing. You wait for the right move instead of wasting energy on the wrong one. It's like a seasoned chess player. They don't rush to make a move just to prove they can. They wait, they watch, they plan. And when they move, it changes the whole game. In our daily lives, restraint shows up in small ways. It's the parent who listens instead of yelling, knowing their calm will teach more than their anger ever could. It's the leader who pauses before making a decision, not out of hesitation, but out of respect for the weight of the choice. It's the person in an argument who decides not to escalate because they value peace over being right. These moments don't make headlines, but they change lives. They shift dynamics. They create influence that lasts. There's also a psychological edge to restraint. Neuroscience tells us that when we pause before reacting, we engage the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for reasoning, judgment, long-term decision making. Without that pause, we act from the amygdala, the fight or flight center. So restraint isn't just a philosophical ideal. It's a biological strategy. It literally shifts you from survival mode into growth mode. And the irony is, the world often mistakes restraint for passivity. They think you're quiet because you're unsure. They think you're waiting because you're weak. But time and again, life proves the opposite. The strongest leaders, the wisest thinkers, the most influential figures in history, what set them apart wasn't how loud they shouted. It was how deliberate they were with their actions. They didn't waste arrows. They chose their shots. So the next time you feel that urge to lash out, to prove yourself, to force something that isn't ready, ask yourself, would restraint actually give me more power here? Would waiting build more influence than acting out of impulse? 9 times out of 10, the answer is yes, because restraint builds patience, patience builds perspective, and perspective builds influence. And influence, that's the quiet power that doesn't just move moments, it moves people. It shifts conversations, it changes the course of relationships, businesses, even nations. Influence doesn't roar, it resonates, and restraint is the soil it grows from. So don't underestimate the power of holding back. Don't mistake silence for weakness or patience for inaction. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. At least not yet. Because in that space, you're gathering strength, you're choosing your shot, and when you finally act, it lands with more force than 1,000 impulsive moves ever could. Closing statement. Restraint is not the absence of power, it's the refinement of it. And when you learn to hold back, to choose your moment, to master yourself, you'll discover the quiet strength that makes the loudest impact.